Something is very wrong with this man. Not internet wrong. Not he's tripping again. I mean legitimately, medically, spiritually wrong. Because when you sit at home 3 weeks out of a state penitentiary, and the very first thing you decide to do, the very first thing, is stand in a nightclub, flash the C on your fitted, and dare an entire city of dangerous men to come find you. You are not entertaining anymore. You are auditioning for a body bag, and Blueface just delivered the audition tape of the year. Jonathan, sweetie, buckle up, because this one is combustible. What Blueface did over the weekend is not the usual Blueface circus. This is not Krisian drama. This is not the Jaden saga. This is not another Wack 100 stunt cast on somebody's stream. Blueface stepped out into a Los Angeles nightclub, surrounded by men throwing signs I am not allowed to describe on this platform, and started dissing entire neighborhoods on camera. Not one block. Not one crew. Entire ecosystems of extremely serious people who do not play the internet game. And the room is whispering that phones have already been passed. The room is whispering that the clip landed in places it was never supposed to reach. And the room is whispering that Blueface, the man who was allegedly on a 50 to 50-yard smoking spice the entire bid, has, in the most public, most humiliating, most self-destructive way possible, put his own address on the wall. Let me back up. Because you have to understand exactly what this clip is before you understand why the whole city is holding its breath. Blueface came home not too long ago, and in the days after his release, everybody, and I mean everybody, was watching to see what version of Blueface was going to walk out of that gate. Was it going to be the humble version? The reformed version? The rap-only version? Or was it going to be the version we all quietly feared? The version that had spent 2 years absorbing embarrassment and needed a stage to spend all of it back at once? Well, folks, we have our answer. Blueface picked door number 3. Blueface picked the pyrotechnics. And Blueface lit the fuse in front of a camera phone he knew was recording. The clip itself is short. It is also, without exaggeration, one of the most reckless pieces of footage a rapper has voluntarily posted this year. Blueface is sitting in a section. His homies are with him. Everybody has on a beater. Everybody is drinking. And Blueface, smiling, animated, having what looks like the best night of his life, is throwing hand signals that translate directly to the names of blood sets I am not going to say out loud on this channel. He is dissing the 20s. He is dissing the Playboys. He is dissing the BPS. He is dissing groups of men who have been beefing with his side of the city for longer than Blueface has been alive. And the entire time, Blueface has this cartoon grin on his face, like this is a birthday video. Like nobody on the other end of that phone has a memory. Like the internet is a place violence goes to die instead of the place violence goes to get scheduled. And that is the part that has veterans of this city genuinely upset. Because Blueface is not just being loud. Blueface is being loud while wearing something extremely specific. The black and red fitted with the block letter on it, sitting sideways, cocked exactly the way he knows will guarantee the freeze frame. That is not accidental. That is not an outfit. That is a signature. That is Blueface deliberately marking every second of this footage so that when it inevitably clips out, nobody can pretend it wasn't him. Blueface wants credit. Blueface wants the smoke. And Blueface, for reasons only Blueface understands, believes the smoke will stop the moment the club lights come up. Real talk, it does not work that way. It has never worked that way. And the man about to remind Blueface of that in the most detailed voice possible is Big Sad. If you have not seen the Big Sad response, you are missing the entire second act of this story. Because Big Sad, cold, calm, no music, no filter, sitting in his car, looked directly into the lens and made Blueface an offer that a lot of people in this city do not get made twice. He offered him a meet. He offered him a location. He offered him a very specific piece of terminology that I will not repeat on this channel because YouTube is watching. But the meaning was clear. Big Sad told Blueface, on the record, that all of the internet talk had run its natural lifespan, and it was time to convert words into geography. And then Big Sad did something worse than issue the offer. Big Sad diagnosed him. Big Sad went line by line through Blueface disrespect and pointed out, accurately, brutally, and with no wasted breath, that Blueface's voice was cracking. That Blueface was flinching mid-diss. That Blueface body was betraying him in real. And the reason that particular line hits so hard is because it strips Blueface of the one costume he has been wearing for the last 6 years. The costume of a man who supposedly came up in the same conditions as the men he raps about. Big Sad essentially said, on camera, in front of the entire internet, that Blueface origin story is a work of fiction. And once that seed is planted, it cannot be unplanted. Now here is where it gets combustible. Because Blueface has not answered. Not really. Not with the same energy. Not with a location. Not with a time. Not with a name. Blueface answered the way Blueface always answers. From a couch. From a stream. From behind Wack 100's platform. From behind an editor. And this is the part where the city stops laughing and starts calculating. Because if Blueface is going to detonate entire sets on camera and then vanish into the safety of an Aiden Ross green room, that is not gang activity. That is not even bad gang activity. That is performance. And performance is the one thing dangerous men will not tolerate from a person waving their block on the internet. Now let me talk about the Wack 100 connection, because folks, this is important, and it is the entire skeleton key to understanding Blueface's decision-making since he got home. Blueface came out of that facility and immediately went and stood next to Wack. Blueface's entire post-prison rollout has Wack's fingerprints on it. And Wack, say what you want about him, love him or laugh at him, has a very specific operating manual. Wack talks. Wack does not travel. Wack starts fires. Wack does not stand near them. And Blueface, whether he realizes it or not, is now running the exact same playbook as his mentor. He is trolling from the couch. He is dissing from the section. He is provoking from the stream. And when it comes time to be in the same zip code as the men he is provoking, Blueface is nowhere. That is not opinion. That is a pattern. And Blueface opposition has watched that pattern crystallize in front of them for the last 12 months. But here is the part that has this entire situation sitting on a knife's edge. Blueface opposition does not respect him as a gang member in the first place. And this is a distinction most of you have to hear clearly, because it changes everything. When a legitimate gang member disrespects another legitimate gang member, there is a protocol. There is a chain of command. There is a way things escalate, and a way things de-escalate. There is even a way things get squashed. But when the opposition looks at you and says on the record, on multiple platforms, that they have never seen you in the field, that they have never encountered you doing the things gang members do, that they never grew up with you in the mix, you are not in the protocol. You are outside it. And when you are outside the protocol, and you are still running your mouth like you are inside it, the response is not a rebuttal. The response is a reminder. And reminders in this city are not verbal. Blueface, my brother, listen to me. You cannot troll your way out of this one. Aiden Ross cannot fight this one for you. The Wack 100 school of talk tough and stay inside is not going to insulate you from what the internet just watched you sign up for. Because at some point, the algorithm forgets. At some point, the clip stops trending. At some point, the retweets stop rolling in. But the men you named in that section, they do not forget. They do not scroll past. They do not move on. They keep folders. And now let's pivot, because I would be doing you a disservice as your favorite messy correspondent if I did not connect this to the other Blueface moment that has the entire timeline in a chokehold. Because listen carefully. In the same window of time, the same handful of days, that Blueface was in the club dissing entire neighborhoods, Blueface was also on camera in a completely different setting attempting to bring home a young woman who, as the internet quickly clocked, was born a man. And I need you to sit with the timeline of that, because the timeline is the entire story. In a single 72-hour window, Blueface managed to accomplish 3 separate PR detonating events. Event 1, dissing extremely dangerous men on camera. Event 2, publicly attempting to leave a venue with a trans companion he did not appear to have identified. Event 3, doing both of these things while an entire city of enemies watched in real time and screen recorded. Now I want to be very careful here, because the trans conversation is not the diss. The trans encounter, all by itself, is not the story. The story is the pattern. The story is that Blueface, the same Blueface who has spent years positioning himself as a hyper-masculine gang-adjacent street rapper, was caught on camera in a moment that his own opposition is now weaponizing against him. And they are weaponizing it hard. They are clipping it. They are looping it. They are using it as ammunition in a much bigger character assassination campaign. And Blueface, instead of laying low, instead of quieting the noise, instead of doing literally anything defensive, Blueface responded by going to the club and dissing more people. Sweetie, that is not a strategy. That is a spiral. And the spiral has a history. Because let's not act like this is Blueface's first spiral. Blueface has been in freefall in slow motion for the better part of 5 years. The Karlissa saga. The Jaden saga. The disrespect toward his own mother on live television. The Karlissa streams that ended with everybody in the room looking uncomfortable. The boxing match against Chibu at the Aiden Ross event where Blueface, and I say this with love, did not look like a man built for combat. Blueface has been telling us, in every way he knows how, that he is not okay. And the industry, the internet, and yes, this channel included, have been treating each spiral as an entertainment cycle instead of what it actually is, which is a man visibly, publicly, in real time, dismantling himself in front of the entire world. But this new clip is different. And I want to be honest about why. Because the previous spirals were relational. The previous spirals hurt Blueface's brand. The previous spirals cost him fans, cost him respect, cost him credibility. This new clip does something the others did not. This new clip involves people who do not care about Blueface's brand. This new clip involves people who do not measure success in Instagram followers. This new clip involves people whose entire currency is memory. And that is the currency Blueface just paid a very large deposit in. Word from the block is that the clip has already been sent to specific rooms in specific cities. Word from the block is that phone calls have already been made. Word from the block is that Blueface's name is being said in tones that are not entertainment tones. And I do not say any of this to be dramatic. I say it because we are talking about a public figure who has now given the men he provoked something they did not have before this weekend. A permanent, undeletable, time-stamped piece of documentary evidence that Blueface identifies himself as their enemy. That evidence exists now. That evidence cannot be walked back. And in the ecosystem those men operate in, evidence like that has a very specific shelf life, which is to say, no shelf life at all. Now let's take the temperature of the timeline. Blueface's mother, Karlissa, has been uncharacteristically quiet since this clip surfaced. And folks, when Karlissa is quiet, that is the loudest siren in the West Coast entertainment ecosystem. Karlissa does not go quiet. Karlissa goes on live. Karlissa goes on IG. Karlissa goes to war on her son's behalf every time somebody looks at him sideways. So the fact that Karlissa has not surfaced with a defense, has not surfaced with a statement, has not surfaced with a "leave my son alone" post, that silence is telling. That silence is a mother watching her son do something she cannot undo for him. That silence is a mother who has seen this movie before and knows the ending is not television. And listen, I have spent enough time watching this family cycle through public catastrophe to know that when Karlissa disappears from a story, it is because the story has crossed from entertainment into fear. Karlissa can perform outrage. Karlissa can perform loyalty. Karlissa can perform interventions. What Karlissa cannot perform is quiet, unless quiet is the only response the situation allows. Karlissa, meanwhile, has been posting cryptically. And I am not going to sit here and analyze Karlissa's every story because that is a full-time job, but I will say that whatever is going on between those two right now, this is the worst possible weekend for Blueface to be creating enemies he cannot handle. Because if this situation escalates, and I am telling you as somebody who has watched this play out in slower motion with lesser rappers, it can escalate very quickly. The last thing Blueface needs is a chaotic domestic situation running parallel to a legitimate street situation. Those two things do not mix. Those two things do not survive contact with each other. Those two things have historically produced tragedy. And there is a version of this next week where Karlissa has to answer questions about Blueface that Karlissa is in no way emotionally equipped to answer. And there is a version of this next month where Karlissa is doing something on camera that all of us are going to have opinions about. Pray for that girl, honestly. Pray for the child. Pray for all of them. And can we address the elephant in the room? Because there is one. Blueface is not built for the world, he just antagonized. This is not shade. This is not disrespect. This is observation. Blueface is an entertainer. Blueface is a personality. Blueface is a streamer, a rapper, a content generator, and, when he feels like it, a boxer. What Blueface is not is a soldier. What Blueface is not is a shooter. What Blueface is not is somebody the men he named in that clip actually fear. And that asymmetry, the asymmetry between the size of the threat Blueface issued and the size of Blueface's ability to back it up, is precisely why this situation has veterans of the city so uneasy. Because the mismatch is the danger. The mismatch is what turns internet beef into a real headline. The mismatch is the entire reason the phrase, "he was moving like he had backup he didn't have," exists. Let me widen the frame for a second, because I think a lot of you younger viewers need to hear this in plain English. The last decade of West Coast rap has a graveyard attached to it. That graveyard is filled with men who were louder online than they were prepared to be offline. That graveyard is filled with men who mistook algorithmic reach for physical reach. That graveyard is filled with men whose managers, whose labels, whose families begged them to stop posting and who did not listen. And Blueface. I am telling you as someone who has watched this cycle 4 separate times in the last 5 years, is checking every single box on the pre-tragedy checklist. The public dissing on camera. The refusal to leave the city. The habit of announcing his location. The reliance on an entourage that is not equipped to protect him. The trust in an inner circle whose loyalty has already been publicly tested and publicly failed. Every single one of those boxes is currently checked. And nobody in his ear seems to be pointing at the checklist and saying, "Bro, stop." And now everybody wants to know, what happens next? What does Blueface do on Monday? What does Blueface say when the streams come back on? What does Wack 100 do to try and clean this up? Does Blueface go silent? Does Blueface double down? Does Blueface, heaven forbid, try to convert the clip into a music moment, drop a diss track, and pretend the whole thing was marketing? Because I have to tell you, I have watched this exact type of situation resolve in exactly 3 ways in the past. Way 1. The offender goes into hiding, waits 6 months, apologizes on a podcast, and hopes the internet moves on. Way 2. The offender leans in, weaponizes the beef into music, makes a small fortune, and spends the rest of his career under a security detail he cannot afford. Way 3. Well, Way 3 is not on this channel today, and I hope, genuinely, that we do not end up talking about Way 3. And there is one more thing I need to put on your radar before we close this out, because I promise you the mainstream press is going to miss it, and I refuse to let this channel miss it too. Multiple people in Blueface's own extended circle have quietly gone dark on social media in the last 48 hours. Certain accounts that would normally be reposting Blueface's every move have gone silent. Certain associates who would normally be tagged in every section photo are conspicuously absent from the recent rollout. And when you see a public figure's inner circle start ghosting a specific chapter of his story, that is not a coincidence. That is a survival instinct kicking in. That is people who love Blueface making sure their names are not attached to whatever this clip becomes in the next news cycle. And that, more than anything Big Sad said, more than anything Wack 100 has co-signed, more than anything the internet has clipped, tells you exactly how serious the people closest to Blueface believe this situation actually is. Blueface has a choice this week, and it is a bigger choice than he probably realizes. Because Blueface can still walk this back. Blueface can still take a step back, take an actual pause from the internet, remove the fitted, cut the section footage, and give the city a minute to breathe. Or Blueface can do what Blueface has done every single time he has stood at this exact crossroads before. Pick up his phone, log into a stream, and add another log to the fire. I know which one Blueface has historically chosen. I hope, for his sake, that this is the week he chooses differently. Because at the end of the day, and I mean this with my whole chest, Blueface is somebody's son. Blueface is somebody's father. Blueface is a real person with real people who love him and real people who need him alive. And the men he provoked this weekend do not care about any of those categories. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Is Blueface capable of shutting up? Or has the internet permanently rewired him into a man who cannot be quiet even when quiet is the only move left? Sound off in the comments and tell me where you land. Tell me if you think this is another Blueface stunt that will blow over by Friday. Tell me if you think Big Sat's response was fair. Tell me if you think Wack 100 is going to intervene or if Wack is going to let this one cook. And tell me, honestly, tell me, do you think Blueface makes it through the rest of this year without a serious incident? Or do you think the clock started ticking the second that section footage hit the timeline? I am parked front row for the fireworks, folks. But this time, I am not laughing. Because this time, the fireworks might not be fireworks. Stay safe, stay smart, stay off the block. I will see you on the next one.